The end of the new 52 DC animated universe has arrived on digital. Is it good? Is it worth your time to check out? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler-free review for Justice League Dark Apokolips War. Is this a good movie? Is it epic and worth your time to check out? If you, like me, have really enjoyed this series of New 52 animated movies, yes, it is very good. It is very much worth your time to check out. In fact, I'm going to give this movie a B+. And that for me means I'd like to own it, which I do on digital, and I could go back and rewatch it, which I already went back and rewatched a few of my favorite scenes today just to kind of prepare to sit in front of the camera and do this review. And I really did enjoy going back and rewatching some of my favorite action sequences and stuff. Wow, I can't talk. I really did enjoy going back and watching some of my favorite action sequences. There we go. I got the word out. So it was fun, and I really did enjoy this movie. One of the first things I noticed is this movie earned its R rating far better than Birds of Prey, you know, the new Harley Quinn movie. Like, it earned its R rating far better than that movie. There were a few gruesome parts in Birds of Prey and, you know, a couple of F-bombs, and I just, you know, that was my cue that this was R-rated. Otherwise, it kind of just felt like a hard PG-13. Justice League Dark Apokolips War was an R-rated film. I mean, it had some strong gore elements to it. Now, it's animated, so I don't think you're going to watch that and, like, vomit or anything. But it definitely earns that R rating, and it earned it better than Birds of Prey. So that was kind of one of my first notes that I noticed about it. But it was a very interesting story, and they did some pretty good character development with our main characters. Now, one of the things that's kind of like a positive and a negative is this was a very Avengers Endgame feel movie. It really kind of had that same feel that Endgame had. The part that was positive about that is as they've built up over the years these animated New 52 movies and they brought in all these different DC characters, this really was something that pulled all of that together. It was positive in that respect. It was negative because the way this movie opened and the way Avengers Endgame opened had an incredibly strong feel. Like, they just felt the same. And they did do different things with it, so yeah, it's fine, it's better. So it's just kind of an interesting balancing act to me. Like, it was R-rated, so it was definitely darker, it was definitely grittier than Avengers Endgame, so in that way it separates itself, and, you know, it's just interesting what it does with these DC characters, but just the way that movie opened and the way Endgame opened, the feel was so similar, it was just like, oh, okay, well, whatever. The other thing is, this is kind of billed as a sequel to Justice League Dark, and in a way it is. Because you bring John Constantine back, and you kind of have more of the magical element, and you bring in some more of those John Constantine characters. But beyond that, it did not feel like a sequel to Justice League Dark at all. It felt more of a sequel to Reign of the Superman, which I was fine with because I really liked that movie. The death and return of Superman were fantastic movies, and so I didn't mind this finally picking up where the Reign of Superman left off, and I was very happy to see that. It's just billing it as a Justice League Dark sequel just because you put John Constantine in more of that lead role, it's like, okay, well, I kind of see why you're saying it's a Justice League Dark sequel, but it really is the sequel to everything. It's really taking everything and pulling that together. Though John Constantine did have more of the lead in this movie, and it did attach me to his character, I think, better in this film than in Justice League Dark, which I haven't seen that movie in a while, but I didn't know much about Constantine other than the Keanu Reeves movie, and I enjoyed the Justice League Dark animated movie. It got me to know the character John Constantine better, but I ended up liking him even more in this movie. So it was kind of interesting how it attached me to that character of John Constantine a little bit more, and I think they used him well in this movie. I do wish this movie was 2.5 hours instead of an hour and a half. I mean, come on, DC, I would love a long animated movie. I'm one of those guys that could sit through that and enjoy it. Because one of the things about Endgame being as long as it was, is it gave you time with each of these heroes to, like, bring their story to an end, to kind of end their arc. And I feel like that was kind of missing for a lot of characters in Justice League Dark, because, you know, it's an hour and a half, so you don't have all the time in the world. Now, characters like Martian Manhunter just kind of randomly appeared in the Justice League as these movies unfolded, and so it didn't surprise me that characters like that, like Martian Manhunter just didn't have that big of a role, but I wish that they did, especially since there was one point in this movie where Oa, the Green Lantern planet, kind of had a bigger role, like a bigger plot point, but we didn't really spend a lot of time with the Green Lantern Corps. We didn't get a lot of time with how they're responding to what Darkseid has done to Earth and this sector of 2814, and so we're not getting a ton of time with that, and I would have liked to have seen more Green Lantern. The other thing is, since it did share kind of an in-game feel, I kind of can't help but make this comparison. I got to know Thanos better in Endgame than I got to know Darkseid better in this one. I think Darkseid is still a cool villain, and he was really cool in this. He was cold, he was calculating, and the way he figured out their plans was pretty smart. So, he was an interesting character, but Thanos was more fleshed out and more developed. Now, granted, they had Infinity War and Endgame and used both of those movies to flesh him out, but that's where it's like, man, if you had just taken this movie and tacked on a whole nother hour, I wouldn't be complaining. And to take that extra hour to spend a bit more time with Darkseid to kind of give him a little bit more fleshing out the way they did Thanos, I think I would have enjoyed that. I was fine with how it was. I'm just saying, I think I could have enjoyed more. And that's a good thing, right? The fact that I watched this movie and I liked it, and I'm left wanting more. That's a good thing, but I do wish we got that more. I do wish it was just an extra hour long so that maybe I could have got more time with the Green Lantern Corps and Martian Manhunter and just a few of these other characters that really are pretty cool, and I felt like they had some pretty small parts. Now, that said, the characters that they spent time on were really good. John Constantine, it was so cool to get to know him. And this other dude, Etrickle, I hope I'm saying his name right, I don't know, because I'm not very familiar with this character. But I really liked him in this movie. The way they used his character and used the humor of his character in this movie, I just really liked him. And it was cool, like John Constantine and kind of what he was going through in this movie. These events cast him into kind of this darkness, into this depression. Bad stuff happens and they, go through these horrible, tragic times. We really see John Constantine just really down in the dumps. And it's Superman that brings him to light and kind of brings him back into the story. And what I find very interesting about that, and I'm biased, look at this shirt. I love Superman. I'm a huge Superman fan. What I love about this is this movie is R-rated, so it's dark and it's gritty. But even in the midst of dark and gritty, you have Superman, and horrible things are done to this character. I don't want to give away too much, but in a way he's different because bad things have really happened to him, and he himself is kind of in this place of darkness, and yet he's still a bright light. He's still very hopeful, and it's his hopefulness that helps Constantine. It's his light that shines in Constantine's darkness. At least that's kind of what I took from that. So you still took Superman in a R-rated gritty movie. You had gritty things happen to this Superman, and still he was a character of hope, an embodiment of hope. So it felt very true to those characters in that way. So I loved how they used Superman in this movie. Raven was a very strong character in this movie, and the way they used her and continued that story arc, they made her a very strong character, and I thought it was very cool to get that continued. Damian Wayne, probably my favorite Robin. So cool in these new 52 movies, and he was so incredibly cool in this movie. The part that he played, the role that he had to accept again because Superman went to find him, to inspire him to take that role. Like, it was just so cool. Again, do you hear my Superman bias? I love the fact this was an R-rated, gritty DC film, and Superman was bright and full of hope amidst the darkness he himself was walking through. And that's one of the things that I like about Superman's character in this. He's a light in the darkness. And to me, that's just a picture of, as Christians, that's what we're called to be, a light in the darkness. We live in a dark world, and sometimes dark things happen to us. In the midst of that, where do we place our hope so that we can be that light in the darkness? So it was cool to see Superman interpreted as that light in spite of all that stuff that was happening to him. That I found inspiring. So I really did enjoy that aspect of the movie. So as a whole, the movie was very cool. Go check out this movie. You'll find a few weaknesses, but I think you'll find a lot of strengths. It's a very good film. It's a very good ending to the animated New 52 movies. Even though it has a little bit of an in-game feel, I think overall that's a positive thing. So I'm gonna give this movie a solid B+. I enjoyed it. I'm a fan of the New 52 movies, and I think if you're a fan of these animated New 52 movies, you would enjoy this movie. It is very well done. What did you think of this movie? Would you go higher or would you go lower with your grade? Let's talk about that in the comments. While you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian and hit the bell by the subscribe button so you're notified the next time I drop a movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else that I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.